Hi, I'd like to welcome you to this short discussion on the 6 keys to planning an inbound marketing strategy. And during the next several minutes, we're going to cover just the core basic elements of what we call our Yokology inbound game plan. And we're going to talk about how we bring those steps together in helping you build your business. One of the core beliefs we have in our business is that tactics before strategy is the noise before defeat. And that comes from the book, The Art of War. And what that simply means is we find so many business owners and even marketing agencies speaking so much about the tactics to help you grow your business. And the tactics we'll talk a little bit about, but when we talk about tactics, we're saying search engine optimization or pay-per-click marketing or social media marketing or Facebook ads. And in reality, we don't start with tactics. I grew up as an entrepreneur early in my teens, started my first business when I was 18, went on through college, graduated from college, tried the corporate life for a quick second, didn't find that to be very interesting for me, and went on to start another business. And so this is not my first go around in business. And so I've been applying these strategies, even though today we're doing it online. I've been applying these strategies since the 90s when we had direct mail and we had fax machines and things that you might not even be aware of, depending on your age at the time you're listening to this video. So what we're going to be talking about in this short session is the new inbound economy. We're going to talk a little bit about how consumer buying behavior has changed and how it's impacting your business. Chances are you're watching this video because the way that you used to get business in your business has changed. The way you bring in business, the way you get found online, the way you attract new customers has changed. We're going to talk about the 6 keys to our strategy, and then we're going to talk about the components of our game plan, which you've probably heard a little bit about at this point. So it should not be any surprise that about 96% of the people on your website are not ready to buy yet. When we look at analytics year after year with client after client who has perhaps been giving a valiant effort at driving traffic to their website, they just don't see that people are buying when they hit their website. Well, the fact of the matter is they weren't buying the first time, 96% of the people weren't buying the first time they engaged with your business before the internet. So what happened is we somehow thought that as the world became more mobile and more digital and more web-based, that for some reason when they typed in certain words that they would just automatically be ready to engage with your business. Well, the reality is the conversation has changed. Consumers no longer need you as the center point for the access for information. And what's challenging for most professionals and most business owners and marketing managers is that they don't want to shift and become consumer information friendly, essentially removing the wall that the consumer wants to get information through and just deciding to remove that barrier. And the quicker you understand how to remove that barrier, give your consumer what they're interested in, the more you'll actually attract more business to your company and to your business. Hopefully that'll make a little bit more sense in just a second. One of the other big concerns that we hear from our clients that come on board is that they find that their website is just not getting the job done, and they find themselves continually buying, advertising, and spending money in lead sources that just don't produce the results like they used to, and they don't feel like they're in the driver's seat. So hopefully by the end of this you'll kind of understand how our process can bring you closer to the driving seat. So let's overview the 6 keys, and I'm going to dive into them a little bit more in depth here, each one, as we continue forward. So the first thing we spend time talking about is who is your ideal customer. One of the things that we hear often is when we ask a client, who is your ideal target audience, who is your ideal customer, we get a phrase that kind of goes like this: anyone who owns a home, or anyone who drives a car, or anyone getting divorced. And the fact of the matter is that's not deep enough. Not anymore, because your customers are online searching for specific things and they have specific pains. So we spend a great deal of time talking about buyer personas. Obviously, the next thing is we have to figure out, once we've got a rich idea of who your individual personas are, we now need to figure out how we're going to drive them to your website, and we have to reverse engineer that, which means how are they searching online, and then how can we make sure your content, your website, your brand is in front of them. What's most important though is when they get to your website, how do we get them to engage with your business before they're actually ready to buy, so that you can, I like to call it how you can get them off the market. How can you build affinity, or how can you start developing a relationship with that visitor? And that's the difficult part that most people struggle with, is that when we did business offline, it was person to person, mano a mano, handshake to handshake, rubbing elbows, and building relationships. So now this digital environment has created this complexity and confusion that most business owners have about, how do I turn that the same thing I used to do offline, how do I do it online? And so that's what we talk about, converting visitors to leads, and that's really what that process is about. If they're ready, if they're not going to buy for 5 months, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, that was the same thing offline. Your goal was to put them in a Rolodex, put them in a 3-card system or 1-card system, and somehow do a tickler file, if you even know what a tickler file, if that even rings a bell, and find a way to follow up until they were ready. Well, the best way to do that is to put them in an automated nurturing sequence. And an automated nurturing sequence is not what most people consider an e-blast. We're not talking about email blasting people and sending them newsletters. We're talking about nurturing them through the exact stages of questions they have on the path to buying your product or service. The next thing is customer delight. One of the things we talk about is that the sale doesn't end, the relationship doesn't end after the first sale. And in most of your businesses, you understand that repeat customers are the lion's share of your business, and or people that refer you from your existing customers referring you. So we talk about how you can do that in this digital world as well. And then most importantly, scaling for growth. One of the challenges with growing your business online is that it may grow very, very fast. And internally, we've found that many businesses have not thought through this idea of how to scale their internal operations. So we do provide some mechanisms and some support and some resources, as well as the automated systems to help you do that. Now, let's talk a little bit more about buyer personas, and I'm just going to touch on a couple of quick points here, and then you can look a little bit closer at the text. What's most important about buyer personas, we're not talking just about buyer demographics. We're really talking about the psychographics, meaning how do they think? What motivates them? What are they concerned with? What pains do they want to avoid? I've been in sales, marketing, and entrepreneurship for now 20 plus years. Very fortunate to have started at a young age. And what I've learned is that most people want to avoid pain more than they want to gain pleasure. I joked in a meeting the other day that, most people avoid going to the dentist, not because they don't want white, clean, healthy teeth, but because it hurts. I mean, even when I get a teeth cleaning, it hurts when they start scraping on my teeth. So we more would rather avoid the pain. And this is beyond going to get a root canal or something like that. Most of us in life avoid pain more than we go to get pleasure. So let's keep talking. That's buyer personas. Next, we have to figure out how we're going to get people to your website. And here's where most people fail. Most people think that they can choose one aspect or another of these, or they can hire one person to do social media and another person to do email marketing and another company to do the Facebook ads, and then they'll work on their blog, and then they'll hire this other SEO company to build backlinks and authority online and what have you. And then the other failure is not connecting your offline marketing like direct mail or flyers or trade shows, and not understanding how those connect to your online presence. And so we talk a lot about all aspects of your marketing to drive more and more traffic inbound to your business. But here's the failure. If you get nothing from this video and nothing from our conversation, understand that these items can't sit in silos with multiple people with multiple different strategies that are not talking together. I coached football and basketball for the better part of 9 years. It was one of the most fantastic 9 years of my life. Got time to spend time with my best friend. We loved coaching kids. And let me tell you, we had football. Let's just talk football for a second. I couldn't put wide receivers on one side of the field and running backs on another side of the field and hope that we were going to play a game successfully. Every player in every position had a job to do, and it had to be a coordinated effort. So I'm hoping you, if nothing else, you start looking at your marketing from a coordinated standpoint and how each of these fuels the other. Next up is converting visitors into leads. This challenges most business owners because most business owners want a phone call, or they want to get a free consultation, or they want someone to check out on their e-commerce site. But as we said earlier, most of your customers are not interested in engaging with you right now. They're interested in getting information about their product or service. Now, if you sell something that's an emergency service, there's a little slight caveat here, and our methodology in most cases doesn't really work into this particular type of an example. But generally speaking, when you're working to capture leads on your website, you're going to create some type of educational piece of content that speaks to a pain point. You're going to present that to them on a single sole page that's going to ask them to take action to get that resource. What that's going to do is then move them into your nurturing stage. And all buyers on all products, on all services, they go through these 3 stages. Sometimes it's a short stage, and in some cases it can be a long stage. One of our clients has a 5-year sales cycle. A 5-year decision cycle between the time the person becomes aware that they may want the product or service and then actually buys it. So how do you capture those people when they're ready to buy? Well, you have to capture them when they become aware that they are even considering the purchase. And so we talk a lot about during the game plan about the awareness, consideration, and decision stage, and how we get these particular pieces of content on your website to capture them at that point. Now, I'm not going to spend much time on delighting your customers because you're probably doing a good job of that. If you've been in business for a while, you understand that repeat business and referral business is very important. And I won't spend a lot of time on scaling for growth because depending on where you are in your business, what we are going to be working in here is a little bit esoteric at this moment if you're early stage and growing your business online. So how do we get there? How do we put all this together? Well, number one, it starts with what we call a self-assessment. And then we move into your buyer personas. We then move into what we call building the engine. And then lastly, we start talking about campaigns. And this is where I think we differ from many companies. Most companies will start talking about the campaigns and start talking about the tactics. Well, we don't want to talk about that. We want to really find out where your business is, what goals you have, what assets are in place. We have to get that connected and do these other things. So in the self-assessment, we're really just spending time focusing on your team and what your current situation and what your competition is up to. And we're not going to read these to you. You're a very smart person. I'm not going to read these page by page. You can, spend some time looking at them. But we really want to know what's going on in your world, what's going on with your competition, and start asking questions. One of the things you'll know about our team is we ask lots and lots of questions. And some of them may seem redundant, but we really are diving in because we need to know what's happening with your business. With buyer personas, it's the same thing. Who are they? What are their common questions? What are their concerns? As we move on, we move into what's called marketing, personalization, and automation. And this is where we talk about building your engine. And this is your engine, which starts at your website, moves as from your website, becomes an informational hub, and is designed to be an online salesperson. We talk about it all the time. We want your website to be a full-time employee that is working for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, essentially being a customer service rep, answering questions, handling objections, and doing all of that good stuff. And if we set it up right, that's exactly what's going to happen. And then we get into the campaigns of really what it's going to look like. I mean, we can't put tactics before strategy. So now we get in here talking about SEO and keywords and all this other crazy stuff. Local SEO, e-commerce optimization, shopping cart abandonment, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I say blah, 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 but we don't bring it up first because until we understand who your customers are, it's not going to matter. So at the end of this process, you end up with a game plan, a roadmap, a physical document. And when we share this with our clients, we literally tell them that this roadmap and game plan should serve as literally your marketing Bible in your organization going forward. And you should also be able to use this with other advertising mediums that may be outside the realm of what we do. And an example would be if you're doing radio or TV or billboards or other types of media. If you're doing those types of things, what we don't recommend is you hand this document to that particular media buyer representative. What we do is we now have you positioned to explain exactly who you're trying to reach so you can ask better questions when you go to buy that additional media. Most people don't know how to ask the right questions to other media sources that could be very valuable to your business. We certainly don't say that we've got a captive plan that you should just turn off other sources of advertising and marketing. We believe that this is really your prize possession when we're done, and we really, really believe that. So as I wrap this video up, if you're ready to get started, certainly reach back out to the individual who shared this video with you, or you can go to yokellocal.com/help and you can schedule a free consultation with one of our digital marketing specialists. Hope you found this helpful. Take care.